I wasn't supposed to be home until Saturday night. That's what Allison thought. That's what my itinerary said. And for the last 3 days, she'd texted me the usual. Hope the talks are interesting. Grab me something from the airport gift shop. Miss you. I didn't suspect a thing. I was in Knoxville for a cybersecurity conference, something I attend every year. Panels, networking, mediocre coffee, and PowerPoint decks filled with graphs nobody reads. It was the perfect excuse for someone like me, routine, predictable, boring. But the last session on Friday afternoon was canceled. Something about a speaker's flight delay. I took it as a sign. Booked an early flight back, thinking it'd be nice to surprise my wife. After all, what harm could a little unexpected romance do? I still remember how normal everything looked as I pulled into our driveway. The porch light was off. A couple of packages were stacked by the door. Through the front windows, the living room looked dim, empty, peaceful. I unlocked the door and stepped into what I thought was my home. But within seconds, something felt off. First, there was a scent. A sharp, musky cologne. Not overpowering, but definitely not mine. I wear something light, almost herbal. This was heavier. Like something you'd smell in an elevator and remember for the rest of the day. I paused, sniffed the air again, and frowned. It clung to the hallway like a secret. Then I turned the corner into the kitchen and saw it. A leather jacket, dark brown, worn, slung over the back of one of our chairs like someone had just walked in, shrugged it off and made themselves at home. It wasn't mine. It wasn't new. And I couldn't remember Allison ever mentioning a guest stopping by. Allison, I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. No answer. I stood still for a moment, listening. The hum of the fridge. A faint, distant rush of water. Maybe the shower? I walked slowly toward the stairs, each footstep heavy, deliberate. My heart was beating a little faster now, though I didn't want to admit it. Halfway up the stairs, I noticed something else. Our bedroom door was closed, but not fully. It had that soft, hesitant gap, like someone had pushed it without fully committing. I pushed it open. The bed had been made. Neatly. Too neatly. Allison never bothered unless we had guests coming. The pillows were fluffed. The comforter was smoothed down like something out of a catalog. I touched it, still warm. On instinct, I moved to the laundry room right next to the master bath. Opened the washer. Inside was a single damp pillowcase, clinging to the drum like a secret it didn't want to give up. That's when I heard the bathroom door open behind me. Allison stepped out in a white robe, one I hadn't seen in months. Her hair was wet, curling around her shoulders, and she looked startled. Not terrified, but surprised in a way she tried to mask too quickly. "Miles?" she said. "What are you doing here?" I straightened. "Came home early. Flight change." She blinked, processing. "You should have called. I would have picked you up." I nodded toward the bed. "Fresh sheets." Yeah. I wasn't feeling well. Took a long shower. Figured I'd change them while I was at it. I let the silence hang between us. "And the jacket in the kitchen?" "What jacket?" "The brown leather one. Not mine." She shifted slightly, tightening the robe's belt. "Oh, that's probably Sarah's brother's. He came by to pick something up for her. She left a book or something here a while ago." I raised an eyebrow. "Sarah's brother?" "Yeah." "Does Sarah's brother wear cologne like that?" I asked quietly. She hesitated, then forced a smile. "Miles, come on. Don't be weird. It's not what you think." I didn't say anything. I just stared at her. I think she expected me to press, maybe even yell. But I didn't. Instead, I walked past her, down the stairs, back to the kitchen. That jacket was still there, sitting like a dare. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. The thing is, when trust starts to crack, it doesn't break all at once. It fractures in silence, in glances, in all the little details that don't fit anymore. And once you see the first fault line, the rest follow. I stood in that kitchen for a long time. Long enough to hear the upstairs water run again. Long enough to wonder if someone else's presence still lingered in the corners of our home. Someone who had walked barefoot on our rug, touched our furniture, maybe even laid in my side of the bed. When Allison came down a few minutes later, dressed in a pair of yoga pants and one of my old college hoodies, she smiled like everything was fine, like we'd just bumped into each other unexpectedly on the street. "Want me to make you something?" she asked. "You hungry?" I stared at her for a second, then shook my head. "I'm good." We didn't talk much that night. She went to bed early, claiming a headache. I sat on the couch and stared at the television without really watching anything. The remote stayed in my hand, but I never changed the channel. I just kept replaying the details over and over again. The jacket, the cologne, the freshly made bed, the single pillowcase in the wash, her robe, her eyes when she saw me, the way she answered too quickly or sometimes not quickly enough. I told myself I didn't know anything for sure, that I couldn't prove anything. But deep down I already knew. This wasn't about paranoia. It wasn't about jealousy. It was about patterns, the kind you only recognize when they start repeating. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I knew the woman I had married. After that night, everything started looking different. It wasn't like Allison confessed and I hadn't accused her, not directly. But something invisible had ruptured. A silent crack that ran under every word, every glance. We were still living in the same house, but it felt like we were on opposite sides of a fault line. The foundation was splitting and neither of us dared to look down. The next morning, she was already in the kitchen when I came down, humming softly as she stirred coffee. The same white mug in her hand, the one that said, "Let's make today amazing," as if optimism could scrub away suspicion. "Morning," she said, too brightly. I muttered a reply and poured myself a cup. The moment my back was turned, I could feel her watching me. Not with love, with calculation. Like she was trying to guess what I knew or didn't know or was willing to ignore. That's when I started remembering things. Things I hadn't thought about in weeks. Maybe months. Like the yoga classes. Allison never liked yoga. She once said it bored her to tears. But a few months back, she started going for her mental health. 3 nights a week, always in the evenings. Always coming back flushed, breathing a little too heavily and never quite able to explain what kind of yoga left her perfume smudged and looking like she'd just sprinted a mile. Or the new lipstick. It was this bold maroon shade I'd never seen before. I mentioned once that it looked good on her, and she laughed, actually laughed, and said, "It's not really for you." At the time, I thought it was a weird joke. Now I wondered who it was for. There were clothes too. A new sports bra that came with a tag still attached, found in the dryer. It wasn't her usual style. More revealing. When I asked about it, she shrugged it off like I was being nosy. And the nights with Maya. Maya, her friend from college, was supposedly going through a messy divorce. Allison claimed she was being there for her, sometimes until 2 or 3 a.m. The first time it happened, I admired the loyalty. The third time, I was suspicious. By the 6th, I was angry and stupidly silent. I remember seeing her once out on the balcony at midnight. She was sitting cross-legged, hunched over her phone. Not talking, texting. The screen glowed against her face, her thumbs moving quickly, a little smile curling her lips. I asked what she was doing. "Just checking in on Maya," she said. I nodded, but something twisted in my gut. Another time, we were driving and a notification popped up on her lock screen. I caught it out of the corner of my eye. It was from a man's name, a name I didn't recognize, followed by the word "yesterday." When I asked who it was, she replied without missing a beat, "A coworker. Logistics stuff." Then she changed the subject. Fast. Back then, I dismissed it. I told myself not to be that guy, the jealous husband, the insecure one. I'd read enough stories online to know that paranoia could destroy a relationship faster than infidelity. So I let it go. Now I was mentally pulling every thread. The strange charges on our joint credit card, 2 drinks at a bar I'd never been to. Client meeting, she'd said. The scarf she lost at a hotel downtown during a brunch with the girls she never invited me to. The sudden refusal to let me touch her phone. The way she'd take it into the bathroom, sleep with it under her pillow. Even when it buzzed at 3 a.m., she'd wake up instantly, flip it over, and silence it without looking at me. When you live with someone long enough, you learn their rhythms. You know the way they laugh when something's genuinely funny and the way they pretend to laugh when they want to distract you. You know when they're lying even when the words sound perfect. And Allison had become an expert at sounding perfect. The next evening, I watched her leave for yoga in sleek black leggings, a top that clung too tightly, and the same maroon lipstick. She didn't kiss me goodbye, just waved from the door with a distracted smile and grabbed her keys. I watched her drive off, then sat back down at the kitchen table and stared at the untouched dinner she'd left for me. Chicken stir-fry. Jasmine rice. She always added too much soy sauce when she was trying to make something feel homemade. I didn't eat. I just sat there thinking, this wasn't the woman I married. Or maybe it was, and I just never saw it until now. The memory that hit hardest came from months back, when we were at a mutual friend's baby shower. I had my arm around her waist, and we were smiling for a photo. Later that night, I caught her scrolling through the gallery on her phone. She paused on the picture of us, stared at it for a long time, then deleted it. I asked her why. She shrugged. Didn't like the lighting. Felt like nothing then. But now, in the harsh glare of hindsight, it felt like everything. The more I remembered, the more I realized. She'd been disappearing long before that jacket ever showed up in our kitchen, and I'd been watching it happen in real time, pretending not to see. I didn't sleep much that night. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, listening for the sound of her car in the driveway. When she finally came home, it was 11:47 p.m. She tried to be quiet, tiptoeing through the hallway, her bag bumping softly against the doorframe. I closed my eyes and pretended to sleep. She slid under the covers beside me, her skin cool, her breathing slow and shallow. I didn't reach for her, and she didn't reach for me. The distance between us felt bigger than the bed, bigger than the house. I didn't know who she was texting on that balcony, or why she suddenly loved yoga, or who wore that damn leather jacket. But I was done ignoring the patterns, the inconsistencies, the small details that didn't match. Because once you know where to look, the truth doesn't hide anymore. It waits. After a week of silence thick enough to suffocate, I finally did something I once swore I'd never do. I installed a smart doorbell. I told Allison it was for security, that a few homes nearby had been broken into, that I'd seen a post in the neighborhood forum. She nodded vaguely, said something about good thinking, and went back to flipping through her tablet like I hadn't just crossed a line in our unspoken agreement. But there were no break-ins. I didn't want safety. I wanted answers. The camera connected to an app on my phone, alerting me anytime someone approached our front door. The setup took less than an hour. And that night, lying in bed beside a woman who smelled faintly of someone else's cologne, I tested the notification settings twice to be sure. The next few days passed like a play stuck in repetition. Allison left each morning around 8:15. Dressed casually, makeup just enough to look like she hadn't tried, and came back in the early evening. Some nights she cooked. Some nights she claimed to be staying late to finalize a pitch deck. I didn't argue. I just watched. I tracked. And I waited. One night, she told me she had a late presentation and wouldn't be home. She'd be crashing at a colleague's apartment downtown, she said. A woman from marketing whose name I'd only heard once before. The explanation came so easily that it almost sounded believable. Almost. She kissed my cheek on the way out. I watched her car disappear around the corner, then sat in the dark living room, my phone open, doorbell app on standby. It was just after 9 p.m. when the alert came. Motion detected at your door. I opened the live feed. A man, tall, wearing a black jacket, not the same one from the kitchen that day, but the style was similar. He carried a bottle of wine in one hand and tapped something into his phone with the other. Casual, confident, comfortable. Within seconds, the front door opened. Allison. Not the version of her who left the house that morning in a gray blazer and flats. This version wore a deep blue dress I hadn't seen in years. Low-cut, backless, the kind she used to save for anniversaries or weddings. Her hair was curled. Her smile was real. She reached for the wine with a laugh and led him inside without hesitation. I didn't look away, not even when they disappeared behind the door. A minute later, the upstairs lights came on. Our bedroom, then shadows, movement. Two figures silhouetted in the window, brushing past each other like dancers rehearsing a routine they'd memorized long ago. There was no fumbling, no hesitation. They weren't hiding. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was routine. And just like that, there were no more doubts. No more trying to interpret her excuses, decode her silences, guess at what wasn't said. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't insecure. I was simply right. She was cheating. Actively. Openly. Deliberately. The realization didn't come like a punch. It was colder than that. Quieter. like a light turning off in a room you'd lived in your whole life. I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I just watched until the light upstairs went off, and the app showed no activity at this time. Then I closed my phone, and I stood. I didn't go upstairs. I didn't wait for her to come back in the morning with some half-baked story about work stress and marketing deadlines. I didn't do any of the things I might have done a year ago or even a month ago. Instead, I packed a bag. Just the essentials. 2 changes of clothes, my laptop, the folder with our mortgage documents, and my birth certificate. It wasn't dramatic. I didn't tear through drawers or throw things around. I moved like someone checking out of a hotel, polite, efficient, final. I left the house at 10:42 p.m. By 11:15, I was in a 1-bedroom apartment just a few streets away, a furnished place I found online months ago when my suspicions first began. I'd kept the listing saved, never quite admitting to myself why. Now I knew. The space was small but clean. Neutral colors. A balcony that faced a quiet street. I sat down on the edge of the unfamiliar bed and stared at the blank walls. Then I opened my laptop and began making folders. One labeled finances. One labeled surveillance. One labeled legal. I transferred the footage from the doorbell app. Every frame. Every detail. I added ***, TS. Copied timestamps. Everything meticulous. Organized. Because I wasn't just leaving. I was preparing. The next day, I rerouted all financial access. Froze our joint credit cards. Closed the shared savings account and moved my share to a private one under my name. I contacted our accountant and updated all the automatic billings. I left no trace she could access. Then I made an appointment with a divorce attorney. A woman named Lynn, sharp, confident, with a reputation for calm efficiency and zero tolerance for games. She took one look at the file I presented and said, "You've done most of my work for me." I didn't smile. I just nodded. Back at the apartment, I ignored every text from Allison. She messaged around noon, "Hey, made it to the office. Long night. Hope your day's good, smiley face." I didn't reply. An hour later, "Dinner tonight? I miss you." I muted the thread. By 7 p.m. she called. Twice. I let it ring. Then I turned off the ringer completely. I didn't owe her a confrontation. She made her choice. And now so had I. The next day, I drove past our house just once. Her car was parked in the driveway. The bedroom window was open. I didn't stop. I didn't slow down. I just kept driving. That night, I slept soundly for the first time in weeks. No tossing. No checking the clock every hour. No pretending not to hear her phone buzzing on the nightstand beside me. Just silence. Complete, merciful silence. It was then that I realized something. When you stop asking for honesty from someone who won't give it, what you gain back is yourself. And that's when healing begins. When I didn't come home that weekend, Allison texted me 5 times in a row. They started cheerful, "Where are you, babe?" Then shifted quickly into worry, "Are you okay? Seriously, I'm getting concerned." By Sunday evening, her tone had gone cold. "This isn't funny, Miles. Call me." I didn't. I'd already moved the last of my essentials to the apartment, chargers, files, a few favorite books. The place felt more like mine than the house ever had in the past year. No lavender candles, no passive-aggressive sticky notes on the fridge, no scent of unfamiliar cologne lingering like bad memories. Just me. I didn't tell anyone at first. Not my parents. Not my brother. I didn't even mention it to my friend Alex, who'd known us both since college and always swore Allison was the most put-together woman he'd ever met. I needed to do this quietly. Privately. I wasn't interested in sympathy or advice. I just wanted clarity. And control. The Monday after I left, I went to our shared bank's local branch and made it official, severed financial ties. They froze the accounts until ownership was reassigned. I removed Allison's name from anything that had my signature, my car, my business insurance, even the gym membership she hadn't used in 6 months but kept active just in case. Then I paid extra to have the doorbell cloud storage upgraded and backed up. Every clip. Every still. I opened a file on my desktop called "In Case She Lies." It wasn't rage that made me organize it, it was precision. If she tried to deny, downplay, or flip the story, I'd have timestamps, video, the full digital footprint. I didn't want revenge. I wanted preparation. It felt mechanical at first. Like I was managing someone else's life, cleaning up after a breakup I'd watched on TV. But then I'd hit something personal. A reminder of what was lost. The playlist I made her 2 anniversaries ago. A photo of us from our first trip to the Outer Banks, her hair blown sideways by the wind, my eyes squinting in the sun, both of us genuinely laughing. And that's when I'd feel it, the ache. Not grief. Not yet. Just the echo of what once was. But I didn't dwell on it. I had too much to do. By the end of the week, the divorce petition was prepped. My lawyer, Lynn, sent it to Allison's work email with read receipt enabled. She also sent a physical copy via certified mail, along with a clean, formal note that began with, "My client, Miles Fletcher, has vacated the shared residence effective immediately and intends to pursue divorce proceedings on grounds of adultery." No threats, no insults, just facts. That evening, I ordered Thai food from a place that didn't take online reservations. The kind Allison used to avoid because, if they don't have an app, they don't have standards. I sat on the balcony with a beer and the scent of pad thai in the air and listened to nothing but wind. No television, no murmured phone calls in the next room. Silence again. The kind that wasn't empty, but earned. 2 days later, Allison emailed me. The subject line was just my name. The body read, "I don't understand what's happening. Can we please talk?" I didn't respond. Instead, I sent a final note through my lawyer. Any communication from now on would go through legal channels only. It wasn't about cruelty. It was about peace. A week passed. Then another. She stopped texting. I heard from a mutual acquaintance that she'd been quiet at work and had taken a few personal days. No one knew why. No one suspected the truth yet, because Allison was good at masks. I knew that better than anyone. She was probably still rehearsing her version of events. Still figuring out how to spin it. Maybe I'd abandoned her. Maybe I was emotionally distant. Maybe she would go with the classic, "We grew apart, and things just happened." But I wasn't concerned about the narrative anymore. I was writing my own. Every morning, I jogged the trail near the apartment. I picked up black coffee from a corner cafe where nobody knew my name, and that felt like a blessing. I read more, slept more, and strangely smiled more. Not because I was over it, but because I was finally in control. One evening, a neighbor, a single dad named Jared, invited me for a beer on the shared patio. We didn't talk about relationships. We talked about soccer, grilling tips, and how weird it was that grocery bags now break so easily. It was mundane and perfect. That night, I sat in bed and realized something. I didn't miss her. I missed who I thought she was. I missed the Allison who left handwritten notes on my lunch napkins, who used to call me from Target to ask if I wanted snacks, the one who danced barefoot in the kitchen when a 90s song came on, and who cried at dog movies like she just lost a friend. But that version of her, if it ever existed, had been gone long before that man in the black jacket walked into our house. She didn't leave suddenly. She left slowly, quietly, one deception at a time. And all I'd done was follow her out the door, but in the opposite direction. 3 weeks after I left, the silence broke. But it didn't come from Allison. Not directly. Her attorney called mine. The message was carefully phrased. "Mrs. Fletcher would like to request an informal meeting to discuss settlement terms and the path forward, in the interest of minimizing conflict." Lynn read it aloud to me in her office, her voice as flat as the laminate desk between us. "No," I said. "No meetings. Let her speak through paper." Lynn nodded once. She didn't argue. She never did. I knew the real reason behind that sudden request. The facade Allison had spent months, maybe years, maintaining, it had started to crack. The man from the doorbell footage? He wasn't just a fling. He was a coworker, married, a senior project manager at the same firm. And someone had finally noticed. The thing about people who think they're careful? They never are. All it takes is one forwarded email, one mistimed text on a shared Slack thread, one wrong calendar invite. Suddenly, Allison's long evenings and team overnights didn't look like dedication. They looked like deceit. Word spread fast, apparently. A week after I rejected the meeting, I got a message from our children's school, our daughter's teacher. It was subtle but telling. "We've noticed some changes in demeanor. We'd appreciate a conversation." I met with them the next day. My daughter had grown quiet, withdrawn, not misbehaving, but numb. The kind of numb that comes from instability. "She's mentioned some tension at home," the counselor said. "Nothing specific, But it's clear something's affecting her sense of security. I nodded. I didn't explain. I didn't have to. That night, I sent Lynn the documentation. Teachers' reports, counselors' notes, a personal log I'd started keeping, dates, observations, details about Allison's behavior when she picked them up or didn't. Lynn reviewed it all and said, "This may warrant an evaluation." The word hung in the air like a gavel. We initiated a request through family court, not to be punitive but to ensure emotional safety. Allison was served with the paperwork 2 days later. I didn't call her. I didn't warn her. I simply did what was necessary. And in doing so, I reclaimed something I hadn't felt in months: control. When the school learned of the legal process, they offered accommodations. Extra check-ins for the kids. A note in their files that I had assumed primary custody for now. Allison didn't fight it. She couldn't afford to, because her world was caving in, and not because I'd pushed. She had lost her job. The HR report was internal, but I heard enough from a mutual connection. Someone had filed an ethics complaint. The company investigated. The affair with a married colleague in a position of influence over her had violated multiple policies. It didn't matter how good she'd been at her job. The optics were bad. The trust was gone. So was her career. She tried to contact me after that. Not through the lawyer. Not formally. She left a voicemail. Just one. Her voice cracked halfway through. "Miles, I know you hate me. I don't blame you. I'm sorry. I don't even know what I was doing. Everything just got so complicated." She didn't mention his name. She didn't mention the kids. She didn't mention me. Just a fog of guilt and half apologies. Like that could rewind anything. I didn't save the voicemail. I didn't play it twice. By then, I had already changed my number. The attorney updated our custody agreement to reflect her new status: unemployed, under evaluation, without stable housing. She had moved in with her sister across town. Not ideal for shared parenting, especially since her visits had become inconsistent. "I'm doing my best," she texted once. I didn't reply. Instead, I requested a hearing to formalize temporary full custody. The court granted it, unanimously, because the facts were on my side. Not anger, not manipulation, just timelines, footage, receipts, and the quiet pattern of a woman who had slowly self-destructed. People always assume divorce is an explosion. Shouting, lawyers yelling, people crying on courtroom benches. But sometimes, it's just paperwork, and silence, and the quiet collapse of someone who believed they could juggle everything without consequence. Allison wasn't evil. She wasn't a monster. She was just selfish, blind to the idea that every action has weight, that children notice, that choices stack like bricks until they crush the very thing you swore you'd protect. I didn't celebrate when the custody agreement was finalized. I just took the kids to the park, bought them ice cream, watched them laugh, and told myself that this, not the win, not the legal edge, this was what control was really for. Not revenge. Stability. That night, I lit a candle in the apartment. Not for ambience, just because it smelled like cedar and winter. I sat on the balcony, watching the street lamps flicker on, and wrote the phrase in my journal: "Her collapse was never mine to engineer." I just stepped out of the way. Came on a Thursday. Plain white envelope. No return address. My name printed in small, neat handwriting, hers. I knew it before I opened it. Knew it before I even picked it up off the kitchen counter, where the mailman had slipped it through the apartment's brass slot. I didn't open it right away. I set it aside and finished my coffee. Took the kids to school. Went to the library where I'd been volunteering on Wednesdays and Thursdays, helping organize archives, scanning barcodes, restocking returns. The letter waited. It always would. Later that night, when the apartment was quiet and the world felt distant, I sat at the table and slid my finger under the flap. It was written on yellow legal paper. 3 pages, all in her handwriting. Neat, dramatic, oddly rehearsed. She never once said she was sorry. Not once. She wrote about distance and doubt. She claimed she had been drifting emotionally, that she felt invisible, that she wondered if I'd notice her slipping away. She called what happened a self-reckoning, as if betrayal was an act of introspection. I didn't plan to hurt you, she wrote. I was trying to find something. Maybe I hoped you'd stop me. She never mentioned the man's name. She never asked for forgiveness. She justified, explained, wandered through memories like a tourist visiting ruins, taking note, but never claiming responsibility for the collapse. I didn't finish the letter. Halfway through the second page, I folded it up, walked to the fireplace, and fed it to the flames. I didn't need to hear her story, because I already knew mine. 2 months after I moved out, I left the city for good. I packed up the apartment, loaded the car with just enough to start over, and drove south, through rolling hills and whispering forests, past towns with names like Hopewell and Quiet Creek. I ended up in a small mountain town called Winter Falls, a place with winding roads, porch lights that flickered warm at dusk, and a main street where everyone nodded when they passed. I didn't go there to run away. I went there to begin. I took a job at the town library part-time at first, then full-time. No suits, no meetings, just stories, people, peace. I started journaling again. Not suspicion-laced observations like before. Just thoughts. Honest, raw, and mine. I signed up for a cooking class at the community center Tuesdays and Fridays. Learned how to make sourdough from scratch. Discovered I liked oil painting. I wasn't good, but that wasn't the point. The point was movement. The point was building something with my hands, not destroying it with doubt. I planted basil in a tin bucket on my porch. Started hiking. Breathed deeper. Laughed more. People ask what it means to start fresh. They think it's about reinvention, changing your name, your job, your haircut. But that's not it. A fresh start isn't loud. It's quiet. It's the moment you stop waiting for an apology and start making your own peace. The day you walk into a cafe alone and realize you're not lonely, just free. I don't think about Allison often anymore. When I do, I don't feel hatred. Just distance. She became a chapter. I became the author again. And in Winter Falls, surrounded by trees older than my pain, I wrote the only ending that mattered. One where I chose me.